Is it time to worry about DK Metcalf? That and much more coming up on tonight's episode of the Footballguys Mailbag Show. And that's what we're starting off with. Vic, help us out here. DK Metcalf, he's had a quiet few weeks here. He had a one catch for about 14 yards last week. I mean, it's not looking good. Is it time to worry about DK Metcalf?
It might be time. And Dave, I know you're going to have a lot to say about this one after Troy and I talk, so I won't take too much time. I just tweeted today, Metcalf is the PPR wide receiver 73 overall since Russell Wilson came back from injury. He's only had 8 total receptions the last 3 weeks, 70 yards, 5 PPR points per game, 0 touchdowns. What is going on? He was producing before that, even with Geno Smith. He was having fine games. He had 27 points, 12 points, 17, 22. I mean, he was still the guy that you wanted on the Seahawks. And now it seems since Russ came back, everybody's struggling. Every single fantasy playmaker is struggling. And it's not like one thing we don't have to worry about is DK Metcalf's snap counts. He's still playing over 70% of snaps. He played 92 and 94% of snaps weeks 11 and 12. So that's nothing to worry about. It's just the connection. I think it is time to worry here.
Yeah. And you mentioned it. He was playing with Geno Smith. This blew my mind. He was putting up better fantasy points with Geno Smith than he is now with Russell Wilson. So there's kind of this narrative going around that Russell Wilson's just phoning it in, hoping that Seattle, cuts bait at the end of the season and he can find a new place. But something weird is happening in Seattle. Troy, how are you feeling about this? Are you freaking out about DK Metcalf? Because, I mean, if you drafted him, you were ponying up at least a second-round pick for him. So you got to be a little bit worried with this output, right?
Oh, I'm worried about it. I'm worried about the timing of it, right? So the problem is, like, if this was the beginning of the season, I'd be like, guys, it's DK, it's Russ, relax, it'll be okay. But if I'd be playing the playoffs, and he's been poo-pooing it, for the past couple of weeks, I don't feel very comfortable putting him in my lineups from a playoffs. Like, 5 points that came in, not going to get it done. And, like, the problem is he's not the type of person you sit because you'll really beat yourself up if you put him on your bench and he blows up. But it's like, man, he's killing you. I don't have DK Ross. I think I have him roster in one league, so I don't have to deal with this too often. But man, this is a tough one. I think Tyler Lockett's still been pretty consistent, so I think he's fine. Gerald Everett, he's actually getting more involved, so he's somebody. But
and taking on the DK Metcalf role.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't know. Did they get a fight? Is it because DK dyed his hair a color that Russ didn't like? I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But there's something going on, so it's not good. Not pretty.
Yeah, and I mean, they shouldn't be that shocking because last year we kind of saw something not similar. I mean, this is even more dramatic than what we saw last year. But in the first half of 2020, he was the wide receiver 2 on the year. Second half of 2020, he was the wide receiver 39. So people got really, really excited. You guys were around last year. By week 4, week 5, everybody was talking about moving him up to the dynasty wide receiver 1 overall, putting him way up there. And I just couldn't buy it. And I know I'm not the only one. Matt Waldman is somebody over at Footballguys that I talked to about. And Tyler Lockett has just consistently year over year improved. He's become a better route runner. He's become stronger, faster. And he's not just that downfield burner anymore. What he did after Doug Baldwin left Seattle is Tyler Lockett stepped right into the Doug Baldwin role. He's no longer getting his balls 15, 20 yards down the field. He's running shorter routes. He's picking up more yards after the catch. He's the third down target. And that worried me a little bit because DK Metcalf was out-targeted last year by Tyler Lockett. And then I didn't expect him to make that big step forward. And that's what a lot of people anticipated, is that DK Metcalf was going to diversify his route tree, that he was just going to turn into, Kevin Johnson, Randy Moss. I didn't see it. Last year, over 50% of DK Metcalf's routes came on go routes or slant routes. So that's pretty much all you got to defend for. You see him come off the line and is he going downfield or is he going across the field? And you can kind of guard him somewhat easily. Every once in a while, we'll throw a wrench in there. But that was my concern heading into the season, is that he was going to be a little bit more boomer bust than people wanted him to. But because we saw last year, he was boom or bust, but rather than it coming, kind of up and down every single week, it was boom the first half of the season, bust the second half of the season. And now we're seeing that volatility week to week. So yeah, if you paid a second round pick for DK Metcalf, that's pretty tough to stomach. But like you said, Troy, you can't bench him because you know how fantasy football works. As soon as you put him on your bench, he's going to go off for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns and, going to cost you your week. So just got to ride it out at this point, but not a good spot to be. I want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Footballguys Mailbag Show. We are heading into week 13 now. Can you believe that we are this close to the end of the season? It feels like week 1 just kicked off. Just want to remind everybody that you can send all of your questions in anytime during the week at mailbag@footballguys.com, and Troy, Victoria, and I will go over those. We bring the show to you live every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can see it on the YouTube channel, on Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're in the chat right now, drop your questions because we will get to those in the second half of the show. We're going to start off with all of these submitted questions and then get to those at the end. Subscribe to the YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguys to see this, the Audible, DFS Power Grid, and all of the other shows that the Football Guys team has to offer. Before we get in, why don't one of you let everybody know a little bit about our friends over at FanUp?
Yeah, I got you, Dave. If you love fantasy football, because I know you do, so you're listening to this and listen up, you have to join this NFL season's hottest and easiest daily contest. You can flex on the competition in FanUp's daily flex ball contest to win cash and the hottest brand prizes, of course. Combines the best of redraft and best ball formats. There's no salary caps, drafts, or waivers, and FanUp allows you to pick a new team daily and stack your roster however you'd like. You can take on your friends every single week, so sign up now. Be sure to enter before Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night games, and Monday Night Football each week to win FanUp bonus prizes from Fanatics. Download the FanUp app now in the Apple App Store or go to fanup.app. Just be fans.
That's right. FanUp.app, just be fans. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. And these are some of my favorite questions, these open-ended ones where it's not just a start sit. And we got our friend Nick Scripp over at P2W Fantasy asking us, who is a player that is commonly started across leagues that you feel needs to stay on the bench this week if you are in a must-win matchup to make a push for the playoffs? This is that time of year where games get really important. You need wins. Who is somebody that has been consistently starting that you're thinking maybe is best kept on the bench this week? Troy, you start us off on this one.
Ryan Tannehill.
Ooh.
Ryan Tannehill. I mean, there's so many reasons. One, he's going against the Patriots this week. We know how Bill Belichick, that defense is no joke. And not just that, but let's look at his weapons. Oh, he doesn't have any weapons. He got Deontay Foreman, and he has Hilliard as the starting running backs. And his receivers, look, he has no AJ Brown, no Julio Jones. Again, he's fighting an uphill battle in a terrible matchup. Like, I much rather go to the waiver wire and stream Taysom Hill, Tua.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many people I would rather play over Ryan Tannehill. Just again, look, could he find a way to make point? Maybe he uses his legs more. Maybe he scores a rushing touchdown, but to me, it's just there's other options on the waiver wire I much prefer to play.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And, right now it's really easy to say, well, he doesn't have AJ Brown, he doesn't have Julio, he doesn't have Derrick Henry. But even when he had all of them early on in the season, he was still struggling. So that's one that, I tweeted about this a couple of weeks ago. I make some bad calls, but usually I'm able to kind of walk through my process, see what I did wrong, and then try to adjust my process going forward. Ryan Tannehill makes no sense to me. I mean, this guy had been balling out for year after year. Like, ever since he came to Tennessee, he was just an efficiency monster. He was getting it done, rushing the ball, throwing the ball, and then he got Julio Jones this year. It seemed like everything was going to work in his favor to have another, good season, and it just didn't happen. So I'm with you, man. If I've got Ryan Tannehill, if it's a shallow league, I probably cut him a couple weeks ago, and if it's a deep league and I still got him on my bench, I'm trying to stream just about anybody over him this week. Vic, same question to you, though. Who's somebody that you feel like you should keep on your bench this week?
Goodness, I have a couple. Javonte Williams. Everybody is just wilding out over this kid, saying he's going to be a league winner for the fantasy playoffs, and he does have a great fantasy schedule, but Melvin Gordon is not going away unless these injuries that he sustained and kept him out of practice today are more serious than they're letting on. But for this week, Kansas City is the matchup. They're giving up the 5th fewest points to running backs for the last 4 weeks before their bye from last week, which was very surprising for me to see. So I mean, if you've been starting him, he's a fine flex. I think he's only gotten over 12 PPR points 3 times this season so far. So he's not lived up to that draft price. Jeff Bell, friend of the show, tweeted out earlier today that you could have got guys like Deontay Johnson and Jamar Chase at the same spot you were drafting Javonte Williams. So that hurt my heart a bit because I have a lot of shares of Javonte. But I'd say Javonte, 2 others that are a little more obvious. Damian Harris, obviously, because of the split workload, this tough Buffalo defense for Monday night's matchup. Of course, Dave did a video on Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. Check that out for Football Guys. And then Mike Williams. I know he had a little boom game two weeks ago. I still kept him on the bench last week. I did not trust it. Back to his low floor last week, and I cannot play him against the top 10 defense in Cincinnati this week. Top 10 against the wide receiver for fantasy.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I'll just add on to, because I wanted to talk about Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson a little bit. And, early on in the season, it looked like Damian Harris was going to be the early down and goal line back. And, he was putting up numbers. He had those 2 kind of duds against Tampa Bay and New Orleans, but those are really tough defenses. And I don't think that they had any intention of running the ball in those games. That was when Mac Jones just started airing it out like crazy. And in those 2 games, Damian Harris had 10 rushes for 10 yards. Every other game besides that, prior to his injury, he had either 100 yards or 1 touchdown. So he was balling out. And then, unfortunately for him, good news for the Patriots, but Ramondre Stevenson just played so good in relief for Damian Harris that he is now taking touches from him. And it's not like, he's just taking some touches. It is split almost directly down the middle. And I broke this down in the video I talked about, but over the last 2 weeks, Damian Harris has 47 touches. Ramondre Stevenson has 44. They each have exactly 21 carries. They each have exactly 2 targets. Damian Harris has 4 carries inside the red zone. Ramondre Stevenson has 3. So, I mean, it's like Bill Belichick is making a conscious effort to do a 50-50 split. And then when you look at the matchup this week against Buffalo, that game script is really tough to predict. So not only are they splitting carries, but let's say they go down big, then both of those guys are going to get phased out of the game, and in steps Brandon Bolden. So, I mean, when you're looking at the floor right now for Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, no joke, even in a PPR league, they basically have a 2 to a 4 point floor. And in a must-win game, those are not guys that I would be confident starting. So you said Damian Harris. I'm going to throw Ramondre Stevenson in there as well. I don't want to start either of those guys this weekend. Troy, Vic, did you have anyone else you wanted to mention?
Oh, I wanted to correct myself about Ryan Tannehill. I think the Titans are actually on the bye this week, so my bad about the Ryan Tannehill. But just going forward, I still don't trust him.
I was gonna say it doesn't matter. Going forward, their schedule's not great either.
Right.
So.
But what I do want to say is someone who's actually been kind of disappointing, even though he's the tight end 12 on the year in points per game, Noah Fant. So Noah Fant is a tight end that you expected him to be kind of in like that higher end middle tier of tight ends, but he's only had like really one like really good game this year. A lot of the games have been disappointing, and the problem is like especially since Jerry Jeudy's been back, so it's like a combination of Jerry Jeudy. Albert O is also getting into the mix as well, and he's just not someone that I want to trust. Like I actually dropped him a few weeks ago, and I actually have Dalton Schultz and Pat Freiermuth on my team. So I dropped Noah Fant because I'd much rather have those guys who also have, bigger upside than Noah Fant. So that's somebody else that I would be a little bit worried about as well.
Now let me throw a name out there, and this is going to be spicy. I'm starting him everywhere that I've got him, but Cordero Patterson has a very tough matchup against Tampa Bay. And, he gets points through the air and on the ground, but Tampa Bay has just been smothering the run for the 3rd consecutive year now. So if you've got Cordero Patterson, are you still just plugging him in as a no-brainer starter, or is he somebody that you might think about possibly benching?
I'm not benching him.
No, not benching that man.
Neither am I. And I talked about this. I think he is pretty much game script proof, because if they're down, he's going to get passes. And if they're up, he's going to get some rushes. Just wanted to throw it out there because he's got a really tough matchup. One other name, though, T. Higgins. T. Higgins has a pretty tough matchup this week as well. You think, going up against the Chargers, do you think it's getting a little too cute benching T. Higgins, or is that somebody that you're also just confidently plugging in? He's been a little boomer bust this year, but are you worried about this matchup against LA?
I'm playing him. After last week, he was really involved. It's just, unless you're really deep, I don't see you like benching him.
Yeah, unless you've got someone better, like a Hunter Renfrow, I'd play over him if you picked him up off of waivers or drafted him. Oh, worth noting though, Tampa Bay is more near the middle of the pack against the run these last 4 weeks, so they're not. But with Vita Vea back, you never know if they'll be better. So, but that'll be a really interesting matchup for sure.
All right, before we get on to the next question, I want to throw one more name out there, and this is another guy who is kind of on that bubble every single week. He's got a really tough matchup. Tony Pollard. So we had these early week reports that Ezekiel Elliott might possibly be managed. And then yesterday, Jerry Jones came out and said, no, he's going to see his full workload. So if we expect Zeke to see his full workload against a very stout New Orleans Saints defense, is Tony Pollard somebody that you're confident starting this week, or is he somebody that you're keeping on the bench?
Jeez, with how many running backs are injured right now, you might have to. Honestly, I have to in a couple. So I'm playing him still.
I agree, and then I think he can still use because he's not a traditional runner. Obviously, Tony Pollard. He can also use in the passing game, so I think that might be beneficial. So I'll still play him.
All right. I'm just looking at a bunch of bubble guys. I think the last one I want to talk about, Alex Collins. Alex Collins is playing against San Francisco.
No.
He doesn't have a lot of usage in the passing. You're done. I think the signs today that they brought in and signed Adrian Peterson. I thought it was the end of the road for Adrian Peterson. I thought getting cut by the Tennessee Titans, I thought that was the end of the road. But hey, it looks like Pete Carroll's got some sort of plans for AP still.
Jeez.
So
I almost dropped him in a dynasty league today. I saw that and I'm like, oh shoot, okay.
AP?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, how about it? I mean, at this point, they might as well just call up Marshawn Lynch and see what he's up to if they're that desperate for a running back. All right, on to the next question. That was a great one, Nick. Thank you for sending those. We say this all the time, but those open-ended questions are a ton of fun. So really appreciate that one, Nick. Next question is from SlickTX713 on Twitter. Any sleeper defenses worth stashing for a playoff run? I have a feeling we're all going to have the same one because I tweeted about this a few days ago, and then we all talked about it in the group chat. Troy, start us off here. Who's the sleeper defense you're looking at for the rest of the year?
It's the Miami Dolphins.
Fins up, baby.
Yo, they get the Jets. I believe they get the Jets in week 15, if I'm not mistaken. So that's obviously, I don't gotta explain anymore. So Miami Dolphins, and during this 4-week stretch of the Dolphins winning streak, they look like the Miami Dolphins of last year. So that's somebody, and then this team, I know they've been more popular, but they're not completely owned in every league. Philadelphia Eagles, they're somehow still on your waivers. They get Washington twice in the playoffs, in your fantasy playoffs. So they've looked okay, but Taylor Heineke is still Taylor Heineke. I know Monday Night Football is trying to hype him up, but let's relax, y'all. But Philly defense has been solid. So I think those are two that, if you can get Philly, he's on your waivers, them, and then Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, so you called out the Jets. I want to call out the other teams that they have. First of all, they're still available in 68% of leagues on Sleeper, which is just mind-boggling. I'm talking about Miami's defense here. Over the last 4 weeks, they are giving up an average of 11.5 points per game. They have 16 sacks in 4 games. They've got 4 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, 4 interceptions, 18 tackles for loss, and a defensive touchdown. You already called out the Jets, but they also play the Giants, Saints, and Titans over the next 4 weeks. So they do have a nice schedule. We just talked about how the Titans are on a bye this week. But Vic, I want to talk to you about this because we had mentioned the Titans looking like they could be a decent pickup. And then they just got ice cold. But after this bye week, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Miami. I mean, is that somebody that you might want to pick up and think about?
I did when we were so hyped about it. We saw the schedule and thought, "Oh my gosh, easy! We'll get them so early." Yeah, and then they performed incredibly against the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Rams, just teams that were popping off on offense in that middle half of the year, and then they couldn't perform these last couple weeks against very, very bad offenses. So I don't trust them. I dropped them in my redraft leagues to get somebody else. I don't trust it. And after the bye, I don't know. I don't think that changes anything for me. I picked up the Eagles in most of my leagues. I also was looking at I don't think the Niners are available in many places, but they've got Atlanta, Tennessee, Houston for their playoff stretch. The Bengals are kind of interesting. They have Denver and Baltimore weeks 15 and 16. Baltimore is just they can be lethal on any given Sunday, but they have not been these last couple of weeks. I don't know.
Interceptions, or there's 3 interceptions.
Yeah, I don't know. They're intriguing, of course. The Bengals. I don't know who else here that I had written down. No one else really jumps out at me. The Cowboys have an okay schedule. They've got the Giants and Washington for weeks 15 and 16. They're a pretty good pickup as well.
So what I'll throw out is if you can find one defense that you can just set for the rest of the year, that's nice. But this time of year, I'm okay rostering 2 defenses because I start looking ahead of the schedule. And I wrote about this in our week 13 roundtable. I don't know if that came out yet or not, but Football Guys actually has a fantastic tool. It's our strength of schedule tool where it shows you every single team and then it shows how many points more or less teams average on a weekly basis based off of their opponent. So looking for that, the example that I called out is, let's say you've got the Cardinals. The Cardinals, they have been red hot this year. They're one of the best defenses that you can have. But if you look at their matchup in week 16 and 17, they have 2 very difficult matchups. They play against the Indianapolis Colts and the Dallas Cowboys. And then on the flip side, it makes it really easy when you're looking at this strength of schedule tool. But the Chiefs have really good matchups in those weeks 16 and 17, where they play the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. So if you can do that right now, where you can just kind of preemptively look at a defense you have, see what weeks they could possibly struggle, and then try to find a defense that you can plug in just for that week. I don't like the idea of rostering more than one defense throughout the entire year. But now if you've got a playoff spot locked in, you're pushing for that championship at this point. So, try to think about it a little strategically. Find 2 defenses that have a symbiotic schedule that work with each other, roster them both, and then that way you don't have to worry about, getting into a fab bidding war in the playoffs. You've already got those defenses set. So I will update the YouTube description when we're done with this video to have a link to that strength of schedule tool. But for anybody that's got a premium Football Guys membership, that's a great tool that'll really help you get ahead of those difficult matchups. All right, on to the next one. We've got a question from our friend Kevin here on Twitter at FFGrinder. He says, I'm a Darren Waller manager with no other tight end on my squad. Should I use a high waiver on Foster Moreau PPR redraft? Vic, how are you feeling about Foster Moreau? He stepped up big last time Darren Waller was out. Are you expecting him to do that week in and week out now?
I would use my priority. When he filled in, like you said, I think he posted 6 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown, and 100% of snaps that week. Week 7 is when Waller was out. He played 89% of snaps last week when Waller was hurt. So I'm happy plugging him right back in. Derek Carr loves throwing to his tight end position, so I'm happy to play him this week, definitely.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. Troy, do you have anything to add to this, or are we just, use that priority and get yourself Foster Moreau?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, again, at this point, there's not a lot of tight ends you can trust. But if you see a tight end who's in a really good position and who has at least performed, you see an example of him performing when Darren Waller's out. So that should give you a little confidence. The only worry is, it's going to be a Hunter Renfrow show because he's been quietly killing it. So that's my only worry, just a little bit. But I would still blow a high priority on him because, again, right now, there's not a lot of good tight ends that are going to be seeing targets on the waiver wire right now. So I would do it.
And the thing, Foster Moreau, even when Darren Waller plays, Foster Moreau is still one of Derek Carr's favorite targets in the end zone. Now, I'm not talking red zone. I mean, I'm talking when they're like at the goal line and they drop back for a pass. He's looking Foster Moreau's direction. So he's already got the touchdown equity and upside there, and then getting some extra looks and targets in Darren Waller's absence. Yeah, I think that Foster Moreau is, set up for success, and I'd have no problem using my top priority on him. Next question comes in from Dan Scheel, and Vic, we'll start off with you on this one, talking about your Buffalo Bills here. Is it Breida time? I'm doing some box score scouting, and it looks like he had 8 of the first 10 running back touchdowns of the game, but I don't hear about it much in waiver columns or pods. And again, I'm going to drop Matt Waldman's name again. Matt Waldman 2 weeks ago wrote a little piece on why you should go pick up Matt Breida right now. Vic, fill us in. How are you feeling about Matt Breida?
Breida's doing well for the Bills these last couple of weeks. Bills barely utilized him from weeks, I don't know, the first week through maybe week 8 or 9. He was not utilized, healthy scratch. And then these last 3 weeks, weeks 10 through 12, he's doing really well for himself. Since week 10, he's the RB16 overall, having 13 PPR points per game, which is wild for a Bills running back. My only scare is, and you'll see this on your apps too, on your ESPN or Yahoo, he's not being projected very many points. You won't see him at the top of your waiver wire if he's still there. And I think that is because the percentage of snaps that he's playing is small. Week 10, 14%. Week 11 and 12, only 32% of snaps. So he's being very productive with his touches. But those touches could be unpredictable as well as his touchdowns because he scored in these last couple of weeks. So he's had nice stat lines, but that is the only concern, is that he's only playing 32% of the snaps. We've got Singletary, who played 68% of the snaps last week, and he didn't score as much. So it's just kind of unpredictable. But with this landscape of running backs just being decimated, I'm happy to pick him up. I did it in a couple leagues.
Yeah, I in one of my leagues, it's a 10 team with pretty shallow benches, so there's a lot of players out on waivers there. But for the last 3 weeks, Breida, Singletary, and Zach Moss are all sitting on waivers, and it's almost like a game of chicken. Like at this point, nobody wants to pick them up. We're waiting for somebody to make a move. But Troy, you got a pretty good look at Breida last year in Miami. I love him as a talent, man. I mean, this dude's a burner. He's compact. He's got great balance. I really like Matt Breida. I'm just worried about his situation there. Is he somebody that you'd be confident if you picked him up, putting in your lineup this week?
Dolphins legend Matt Breida. I would say confidence. I don't know about confident. I think that he's a high upside play, just for all the reasons that Victoria mentioned. Is just he's not playing enough snaps, and you need him to score a touchdown. If he doesn't score a touchdown, then his numbers look really ugly. But thankfully, he has been. He has the juice. He's been extremely efficient. He almost reminds me a little bit of early, like week 1 Cordell Patterson, right? Like he was balling out on very limited touches, and he was scoring. And that's pretty much what we're seeing from Matt Breida. And I think the Bills are actually probably playing it smart, right? Because, Breida has had, health issues in the past, and they're wanting to limit his snaps because they want to be able to utilize him. He's an amazing weapon, but he can't handle a big workload. So he's been extremely efficient with his touches. I think he's a good high upside play. So that's for that reason, but you just got to go into it like, hey, if you're going to start him, this guy has the ability to burn you because he's not playing enough. So just be mindful.
And he's got the Patriots this week.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible matchup too.
Tough.
That's a tough one, but y'all might have convinced me. Maybe I will pick up Matt Breida. Maybe I'll be the first one to break in that league. All right, next question comes in. I don't know if this one deserves a sorry Joe or not. Coming in from at Floppy Flanks. I don't. But they are asking. I have no idea. I don't know if I should have said that or not. But they are asking a second and Marquez Callaway for Cordell Patterson. For talking about picks here, obviously this is dynasty, so second round pick and Marquez Callaway for Patterson. Which side for somebody that is trying to win now, or trade that same second, 2 fourths and 2 fifths for Myles Gaskin? Let's break these down one by one. Troy, start us off here. Are you giving away a second and Marquez Callaway for Cordell Patterson?
To me, Marquez Callaway is just a throwaway. So I think a second right now is perfectly fine for Patterson, especially for a win now. Like, yeah, he's the type of piece that's going to help you win a championship. So yeah, the Gaskin side, I think that's a little much for Gaskin. Though, if you're giving a second and 2 fourths and 2 fifths, I mean, the 2 fifths are throwaways, but I'd much rather have Patterson for a win now team than Gaskin. And we'll see what happens, in Dynasty with Patterson. Look, if it's the same coaching regime next year and they re-sign Patterson, I think his contract's up. But if they re-sign him, his wheels up for Patterson next year. He's going to go high. So Gaskin, I'm worried that they're actually going to draft a running back or bring someone else in. I like Gaskin, but the Dolphins are most likely going to draft a better running back. So
let's just talk theory here for a second. I mean, 2 fourths and 2 fifths. What does that even equate to? I feel like anytime you mention a 4th round pick, everybody's like, oh, it could be the next George Kittle. That was 2017. When's the last time a 4th round pick in Dynasty has actually paid off?
It does. It's just extra. But to me, I much rather have for winning now. Who would you rather have right now, Patterson or Gaskin? So I'd rather have Patterson in this win now situation. Even though Gaskin's doing fine, it's just Patterson has more upside than Gaskin at this point. So give me the Patterson side for my win now championship team.
Yeah,
And I'm a
that's where
Dolphins
I'm
fan.
at
I'm
too.
telling y'all, like, you should go Patterson in this.
Yeah, I mean Patterson. Yeah, I'm sure you guys saw this. It was all over Twitter today. But now Patterson has the safety eligibility as well. The Atlanta
Yes.
Falcons updated their website and their depth chart. So now Cordero Patterson, on top of his running back and wide receiver eligibility, is also a safety.
He
Apparently,
can just do everything.
yeah. I mean, I feel like Cordero Patterson comes up at
That
least
alone,
once
sorry.
every single week on this
Yeah,
show.
sorry that alone, but that alone, the dual eligibility, as long as like dynasty sites don't take that away, that makes him more valuable than so many other pieces. So based off that alone, you should go Patterson.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it was like a cheat code during bye weeks. Just being able to plug him in wherever you got a hole, wherever you got an injury, wherever you got a bye week, just plug Patterson in there. I mean, that was pretty darn nice. But Vic, let me just throw this to you real quickly. A second and Callaway for Patterson. Let's just focus on that. Are you making that trade? Are you giving away a second and Callaway to take on Patterson?
Yes, I am. I agree with everything y'all are saying. And even with Gaskin, sure he's been okay, but he's been so up and down this entire season. And I'm not knocking him here. They brought him Philip Lindsay for depth. I'm not saying it's to come and take Gaskin's job, but they just won't commit to him being that full-time back. So I'm Patterson all the way for this.
Yeah,
this
they
trade.
they sure won't. It is frustrating for those that ponied up fourth, fifth round pick for Myles Gaskin this year. Next question comes in from Abe at DFS Docket. What are you willing to pay for Chris Carson or Allen Robinson in Dynasty? Oh man. I mean, I gotta say,
Gross.
as one of the biggest Chris Carson stands this offseason, I said it often, and it's frustrating because I'm in a ton of industry dynasty leagues, and everyone knows how much I love Chris Carson. So everyone was trying to trade me away their Chris Carsons. My Chris Carson take was very strictly to redraft. I wasn't a huge fan of his dynasty value because he had that short contract in Seattle. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I have no interest in trading for Chris Carson at this point in dynasty. I don't know if we're ever going to see this man take a snap again. I mean, neck problems already, amplified on top of the other injury concerns that he has had throughout his career. I'm not trading anything for Chris Carson. I'm trying to dump my shares wherever I can in Dynasty. Let's talk about Chris Carson first, and we can go on to Allen Robinson. Vic, I saw you kind of nodding in agreement. How are you feeling about Chris Carson in Dynasty?
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm not looking to acquire him. I was gonna put this back to you, Dave. Would you give like a third round pick for Chris Carson at this point?
Mm-mm.
No, yeah, I'm with you. Bottom of the barrel. I'm like, goodness, that neck injury was scary, and he's not coming back. So I'm not in on Chris Carson.
Yeah,
Troy?
I thought he had another year or two left in the tank, possibly, but I'm worried at this point. Troy, are you giving up anything for Carson?
So
A third?
Dave and I, well, he's probably a third. Dave and I are in the league where earlier this year, when he was actually doing well, I actually traded for Carson because I thought my team was win now, and then I ended up having to, go into a rebuild. But yeah, I traded for Carson before he got hurt, and I regret it. But he's right now. I think a third is a fair value, and I feel like I'm lowballing him because if he does come back, I feel like either maximum value is a very late second, but I think I wouldn't do it for a second. I think most people wouldn't. So probably a third will get it done. It's
feel
just
like
a damn shame.
The three of us kind of sniffed this out early, though. Like, as soon as we saw Pete Carroll, who is like the forever optimist when talking about injuries, showed some pessimism when he was talking about this and said, hey, it's a long-term thing. We don't know how far it's going to or how long it's going to last. All three of us immediately just saw huge red flags popping up. And I know we were all talking in the group chat, like, hey, let's sell our Carson shares. And I flipped a lot of my Carson shares, before he hit IR, but this is not looking good, man.
Oh, no one of mine. Like, the problem is, like, he got hurt and nobody. Oof, the offers I got were disgusting. I'm like, you could just hang out on my bench. I mean, if you retire, you're retiring to my team.
Now let's talk about Allen Robinson, because Allen Robinson is much more polarizing. I think most people have cooled off on Carson. There isn't much of a market for him anymore. But Allen Robinson is a guy that I think not only is a good dynasty buy, but I think he's a good redraft buy now with Andy Dalton starting. I think that we can see Allen Robinson actually, if you can get him right now. I've seen him on waivers in some leagues at this point where people are just flat out cutting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with Andy Dalton out there now, I mean, I could see Allen Robinson had a hot finish to the end of this season, and I kind of like going out and acquiring him in Dynasty as well. So, Troy, what are you willing to pay for Allen Robinson in Dynasty right now?
I think he's a second. I think that's a fair value for him. You're not going to get a first for him. Like he's not worth the first. He's definitely not worth the third. So I think second is a fair value.
Now,
And I hate it.
second's broad because there's a big difference between the 13th
say
pick and the
mid.
24th pick. So, are you giving up a high second? Let's say you got
No, I say mid second. Mid second, I think it's fair. Because the problem is, I don't think it's not his fault, and I think that's what it is. It's not like he's playing and underperforming. Is Justin Fields going to get in the damn ball? And I think that's what was frustrating. I don't know what it is. Like Darnell Mooney took over the wide receiver 1 position, and I'm not expecting Allen Robinson to be back with the Bears. So it's like the unknown of where he's going to go in some ways is scary, but at the same time, it's not going to be worse than what he's dealing with now. So it's kind of like might bake into his value, right? It's like kind of like when OBJ, when he left the Browns, his dynasty value went up a little bit because of the unknown. So I think that something similar is going to happen with Allen Robinson. If he just goes to a halfway decent spot and he just gets, a couple of targets, then I think he'll be fine. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for 10. Give me like 5 or 6 consistently and actual catchable passes, and then Allen Robinson would be just fine. So I think second is fair.
So I think we're all in agreement that a second round pick. Let me throw a few player names out there that are similar age to Allen Robinson, and we'll just do an Allen Robinson or X player, and we'll kind of rapid fire through these. But Tyler Lockett, 29 years old. Who do you prefer, Tyler Lockett or Allen Robinson? And for Allen Robinson's 28, so you're only looking at 1 year difference.
Lockett.
All right. Robert Woods, also 1 year older, coming off an ACL injury. Robert Woods or Allen Robinson? Who do you prefer in Dynasty?
Woods. Oh, the injury scares me a bit.
If he comes back, people get injured all the time. He can come back.
ACL, an ACL tear isn't the death sentence it used to be.
Nah, he'll be fine.
I know that, but it was a little bit later in the season, so I'm
True.
like,
I'm going Robinson over Woods.
I think I'm gonna go Robinson there.
I don't
just because of that uncertainty that Troy mentioned.
I don't know, man. Woods. I'm still going Woods. But I don't like that one.
So now let's go somebody that's a little bit younger here and another pretty polarizing player, Mike Williams, 27 years old, hitting free agency this season. Mike Williams or Allen Robinson? Who do you prefer?
Give me Allen Robinson.
Oh,
all right.
Because the problem is like if Mike Williams has been in a really good situation for like his whole career, right? It's like with the Chargers, I feel like the quarterbacks he's had, they've been good quarterbacks. He had Phillip Rivers, and then he had Justin Herbert. So wherever he goes, I don't know if he's automatically going to be a target machine, right? Like I don't see a situation getting that much better for Mike Williams. At least for Allen Robinson, I think there's a chance that he could go somewhere that might be better for him. So
we'll throw one more name out there, and this guy's a few years older, and a guy that we've been talking about regression for years, and it just isn't happening. Adam Thielen, 31 years old. Allen Robinson, 28. Who do you prefer in Dynasty, Thielen or Robinson?
Allen Robinson, just because of the age. He man 31. He a grandpa. Adam Thielen, he's been disrespected. He's been producing, but I'm like, yo, there's a moment in time where it's like, okay, man, you 31, like, come on, man. Look, you find winning from a dynasty, but in terms of dynasty value, I can't ignore the difference, man. Like, it's too much.
Yeah. All right. Just wanted to throw some out there. I think those were some pretty, about where he's valued right now. But also, we got to remember his ceiling, man. Like, would it surprise anybody if he ends up somewhere next year where he goes out for 150 targets, 1,200 yards? And I mean, it could happen. It could happen.
Thielen is signed through 2024, it looks like, or 23 at least, which I didn't know. Kirk
Cousins is not. So Kirk Cousins, I think he's only got 1 year left.
Kellen Mond, baby.
Yeah. So are you confident with the Kellen Mond, 33-year-old Adam Thielen connection? I mean, is that what you're looking at?
Look, we haven't heard anything about Kellen Mond. We haven't seen him in action. I don't know if we're gonna get Jordan Love or we gonna get Patrick Mahomes. I'm joking.
So I'll say, I did a show with Arif Hassan a couple of weeks ago, and that was what I asked about because I loved Kellen Mond coming out of the draft, and I asked him, how's he doing? And they said he hasn't really done much at all. At this point, he's just kind of sitting back, watching the game up close, studying film. But they've still got hopes for him. It'll be interesting though. I'd recommend checking that show out because we did talk a lot about the Vikings' future plans for quarterback there. And he's saying that they might spend a first-round pick next year on a quarterback. They might go out in free agency. I mean, they pretty much right now, it seems like they have every single option on the table. It could be Mon, could be a free agent, could be another rookie that they bring in. So They're getting to the end of that Kirk Cousins contract, and it'll be fun to see where they go from here. But anyway, we got 3 questions left, and these are quick, just start-sit questions. So start throwing those questions in the chat because we will get to them in just a few minutes. First question comes in from Fire Fool on Twitter, and he's saying, are you starting Tyrod Taylor versus Indiana or Taysom Hill versus Dallas? Taysom Hill easily for me. What do you guys think, Troy?
Yeah.
This is the sweep. Taysom.
Yeah, Taysom. I'm so excited this guy's getting his start again. Did you see CBS tweeted it out today, but they were showing since Drew Brees took over all of the different records of quarterbacks in New Orleans. Every single quarterback has a winning record, and then Trevor Siemian is 0-4. I don't know what they've been trying to do the last few weeks, but yeah, it's Taysom time.
Sean Payton, I don't know what it is. Like you always hype this man up. You pay him all this money, and you don't give him the starter job. It's like he's obsessed with keeping him in this utility Swiss Army knife role. But I'm like, and Taysom doesn't want to be in that role either. Yo, I want to be a quarterback. Sean, like, nah, we're gonna pay you all this money.
We're gonna give you $60 million so you can't be on our opponent's team.
Exactly. Like I'm gonna keep paying you, but you're not gonna be the starter unless we have no other option.
He's been pretty banged up over the last couple of weeks too. So
last year was
and Troy's right. Last year was kind of like this too. I don't know. It's a weird situation, but Taysom Hill is named the starter. That's gonna be a shootout against Dallas. I am easily going Taysom Hill here. Next question: Tua Tagovailoa or Wilson? I'm gonna assume this is Zach Wilson. Oh,
I'm assuming it's Russell Wilson.
It's gotta be Russell.
It's gotta be Zach Wilson is too horrible to be in this.
Ain't nobody starting.
I was just throwing a little jab here at Troy. So Russell Wilson or Tua. I don't know. Do you guys have these matchups available? I feel like I should know this. I'm just drawing a blank right now.
Tua's got the Giants, and Wilson has San Fran.
All right.
Give me Tua.
Yeah.
Give me Tua. Not just a homer pick, but look, Russ had 23 fantasy points on. So he did fine. He looked horrible doing it, but he put up normal numbers, but Tua been consistent. He's the QB 11 since week 6. So he returned from his injury, and that's including the Baltimore game where he only played like less than 50% of snaps. So Tua should be higher, but if you factor that in, he should be even higher. So give me Tua.
Yeah, I'll take my L on this one, Troy. We talked about this a lot during the offseason. I wasn't the biggest Tua fan, but he's looked pretty darn sharp these last few weeks.
Everyone was clowning. Oh my God. All offseason, people were clowning me about Tua.
So I got to say, though, a big reason for the laughter is just the way that Miami just disrespects him. Like, I don't understand. Like, they traded up in the draft to get this guy. Like, they want him to be the franchise quarterback, but they aren't showing any sort of trust in him whatsoever. Like Brian Flores is just throwing him on the bench, taking him off willy-nilly. And I mean, it's working because he's looking better. He's developing, but that is a weird route to quarterback development that he's taken there.
It's true.
Russ couldn't even get it going against the Washington defense, who's been better in the last couple of weeks. They're around the middle of the pack against QBs, but Russ couldn't do a thing, and now he's got San Fran eighth best against quarterbacks.
One of his best receivers. For some reason, he doesn't want to throw to him. Like, oh no,
we don't know what's going on. Seattle bench for sure.
Yeah, so all three of us are in agreement here. Tua. That's who you're starting over Russell Wilson. And then the final question, and then we'll get to the chat. I see a few questions in the chat now, and we'll get to the rest immediately after this. Another one coming in from our friend Abe, and Abe is asking, should I seek professional help for thinking about playing Carson Wentz versus Houston over Mahomes in Denver?
Yes.
All right,
don't get too cute, man. Like, don't look. If Patrick Mahomes goes off on your bench and Carson, look, he could have a good game, but he could also suck. And you see Patrick Mahomes balling, like there's no talking out of it. Like you just made a horrible decision.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all on this, man. You know, Wentz has been looking good. He's got a nice matchup, but you're going Mahomes here. Don't get too cute with it. All right, Vic, let everyone know a little bit about the daily email update, and I will start combing through the chat for questions.
Guys, every single week, if you're watching this show, you have to be signed up already. But if not, you need to sign up for the Football Guys daily email update. Every single day, Joe Bryant brings us all the latest from Football Guys, the news, transactions, rumors, all of the articles from that week, all of the podcasts and shows we've done from our Football Guys staff. every single breaking piece of news, injuries, all that good stuff. Get a one-up on your league mates, especially during this playoff run, and sign up for the Football Guys daily email update.
Absolutely. Now let's jump right in. Kevin Biscayino. I think I got that right. Sorry if I butchered that. Kevin is asking us, should I trade DK Metcalf for Dalvin Cook? I have playoffs clinched.
Yeah, I do it.
How are you feeling about that injury, though?
Dalvin's coming back.
Yeah, they say he is. They say he is.
I would say, look, man, based off what we know, Dalvin should be back for the playoffs, right?
My man doesn't have a labrum in his body right now. He's got 2 torn labrums.
Okay, what's gonna happen? He's gonna come back. He's gonna put up points. He's gonna get a little banged up. Come back in the game. Look. You would rather have DK Mr. 5 points for the past 3 weeks than Dalvin? Give me hurt Dalvin Cook right now.
I'd take it too. Get some wide receiver off the waiver wire. He's gonna put up just as many points.
Yeah, I can find somebody that could put 5 points up.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That Dalvin Cook injury worries me, especially this late in the season. And it's not like the Vikings right now are, front runners for a playoff spot or anything. So if they lose the next 2 weeks, what's the reason for bringing Dalvin Cook back if their season is basically over? They got a lot of money tied into this, man. So they lose the next 2 weeks or so. I mean, Dalvin Cook might not play at all. At least with DK, you got a warm body that you can put in your lineup.
I think they're safe. They played Detroit this week, so they got one win.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm like. Yo, come on, man. If they lose to Detroit, yeah, then I would be a little worried.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next one. This question coming in from Steve F on YouTube, and Steve is asking us: half PPR flex spot, Matt Breida versus New England or Darrell Williams versus Denver. He added to this some other flex options are Tyler Conklin versus Detroit, Jerry Jeudy versus KC. Nope, let's stick with the originals. Breida or Darrell Williams.
I say Breida. I say let's go Breida. He has the most upside.
Yeah, I'm going Breida here too. I want to take a look real quickly while you guys are talking. I'm gonna see how the Kansas City snap count shook out when
CEH came back.
I got you, yeah.
Because I was really surprised. Just touching on that, I was surprised that they just gave CEH the workload and he just looked as good as he did, and then Darrell just got phased out after looking so good and getting all the targets in the world. So I was very, very surprised by that split. But I just think that
you're surprised by this too, Troy. Darrell played 53% of snaps.
He outsnapped CEH last week.
Clyde 47%. Not that it matters on the.
Well,
the
I
points,
guess I was surprised that look, it didn't look like it. It didn't seem like it in terms of. But I don't know what the opportunity share was, even though like he played more snaps. I don't know what the opportunity share was. I don't have it in front of me, but just CH looked good. He looked like he looked perfectly fine. But give me Matt Breida.
What if I told you Darrell Williams also out targeted CEH last week, which
he
is what we talked about.
He always out targets CEH. That ain't news.
Denver's pretty good against the run too. The last 4 weeks, I think they're top 15, middle of the pack, maybe closer to yeah. Denver's pretty good against the run. I don't know.
This is a tough one. I think Steve, the advice that I would give to you on this one is it kind of depends what you're looking for. If you are not confident in your team, if you think that you might possibly get blown out, I'd go ahead and start Matt Breida because I think that he has a much higher ceiling. If you need a floor play, you'd be okay with somebody getting you 5 to 10 points. I think Darrell Williams is the safer floor play here. It's a tough question without knowing what your matchup is and who else you have on your team. But my advice would be that Breida's got the higher ceiling. Darrell Williams has the higher floor here.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, things are slowing down now, guys. We're getting to week 13. There's a lot of teams that are just out of it already, that no longer have any playoff hopes. Stop tuning into this show, and we'll be back in 2022. So we don't have those those comments flying through the chat like we used to anymore. Before we sign off, do either of you have any league specific questions? Maybe something that we could try to help you out and walk you through a little bit. Any start sit questions that y'all are struggling with?
So
okay, that's good.
I have one, but it's like it depends on Pat. I'm not gonna risk it, but pretty much I had the decision between Pat Freiermuth or Dalton Schultz. But the problem is, and also the Steelers, I think, go against Baltimore this week, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that's a great matchup for tight ends. But the problem is he's in concussion protocol. So I have no idea if he's going to pass it before, Sunday. And the Cowboys play tomorrow. So I have Dalton Schultz against the Saints, who are a little tougher against tight ends. So I guess I'm just going to not risk it and play Dalton Schultz. But I really wish I could play for Freiermuth. So.
Dude, I'm all in on Freiermuth this week. I talked earlier about how I'm just kind of completely out on Damien Harris right now because of his situation. If Freiermuth plays on Sunday, I'm playing him over Damien Harris in my flex spot in one of my leagues.
I don't blame
Freiermuth has been unstoppable right now. I mean, he has more red zone touches over the last 5 weeks than Najee Harris does. Not red zone targets, red zone touches. Like, he is their focal point when they get close to the end zone. So I'm all in on that. Vic, you got any questions before we sign off here?
That's a tough decision. I will say, and try to comfort you, Troy, Dawson Knox had 2 touchdowns against the Saints last week. So, but he's also Dawson Knox.
Okay.
But yeah, I've got TJ Hawkinson or Dalton Schultz that I'm mulling over.
They go Schultz there.
I'm going Schultz because the problem is TJ Hawkinson would have had a terrible game if he didn't score. So, I mean, same thing with Pat Freiermuth last week, but at least we've seen him get targets. Hawkinson ain't getting targets all season for some weird reason. So,
yeah, I came out with that video prior to last week, kind of saying, hey, TJ Hawkinson, we should be looking at him as a low-end RB or a low-end tight end 1. Like, he's not that top 3, top 5 guy that you wanted him to be. Yeah. And my mentions were blowing up on Thanksgiving. First of all, why aren't you spending Thanksgiving with your families? Why are you trying to troll somebody? And second of all, why are you getting excited about what did he have? 3 for 35 and a touchdown? Yeah. Like, that's what we're getting excited about, 3 catches. So
the touchdown saves all.
Ooh,
if you're trolling on Thanksgiving, you need to reevaluate your life choices.
Trolls they don't take a holiday, this.
No, they ate their turkey and then they came back to troll you. That's why.
Hey, Dave, did you see that 3 for 35 game from TJ Hawkinson?
Exactly.
I have one more, and this is a little polarizing. Okay, Pittman against Houston. I've got Hunter Renfrow as well. Obviously at home against Washington.
I like Pittman.
Yeah, Pittman.
Still Pittman?
You can make the argument with Waller being out for going with Renfrow, but
yeah.
Well, look at that, guys. We BS'd our way into getting a couple extra questions in the chat. So Steve is back with another one. Follow up on your defensive suggestion for the playoffs. Where do you rank the Los Angeles Chargers? So let's go ahead and look real quickly. We'll get ahead and see what the schedule is. The Chargers coming up play against the Bengals, Giants, Chiefs, Texans, and Broncos through week 17. They've been looking pretty good. I mean, are they somebody that you'd be thinking about as a sleeper defense?
I'd prefer not. I mean, I think they'd be fine. I mean, if you can't get some of the other ones we reference, like Miami or Philly, then I think they're a decent option.
You would have to have an option for week 15 in the playoffs because that's Kansas City, but then it's Houston and Denver. I mean, I don't hate those matchups. The Chargers they're not creating too many turnovers, not a ton of sacks. They're just they'll get you maybe 5 or 6 points as a floor in those matchups, I would assume, but they're not my favorite.
Yeah, so I'm trying to look right now to get ahead because, like you said, I'm not starting at any defenses against the Kansas City Chiefs. So looking in week 15 at some other good options that you might be able to stream. I know we talked about it earlier. The Titans have the Steelers. The Steelers have been pretty susceptible against opposing defense and special teams, so I don't hate that one. The Eagles face off against the Washington football team, so that might be a nice pivot for week 15 as well.
Texans against the Jags.
I was going to say Texans and Jags. Pick your poison. You can take either of those and plug them in. Yeah, that is going to be a disgusting
I think
game.
I wouldn't play the Jags defense against Houston because Tyrod's been decent. He's been decent. So
the Jags have been better the last couple of weeks, stopping the run and all that. They stopped Carson Wentz and Josh Allen in their tracks. I mean,
Josh Allen's
we don't know what happened that week.
I don't believe Trevor Lawrence hasn't had a multi-touchdown game since week 1. Completely off topic here, but still talking about the Jags. Whew, couldn't believe that. But we got another question here from Devin Wolf. Devin Wolf is asking us, half-point PPR, Tevin Coleman or Boston Scott?
Boston Scott.
Yeah, Boston Scott easily for me here. Yeah, he's walking into he should have been one of your top pickups this week on the waiver wire. I really like Boston Scott this week, so that's who I am going with. And then we
Is
got
Miles Sanders trending on sitting?
That's what it's looking like. Yeah, it looks like he's not going to be able to play, and if he does, they're saying that he should be limited. So Boston Scott is a pretty nice pickup this week. So we got Axel Stone asking us here. I have the Patriots, Cardinals, and Eagles defenses coasting into the playoffs. Which one would you drop?
Whoa.
Ooh, that's a lot. There's a lot of good ones.
Didn't we hit on Arizona having a tough playoff schedule?
They do.
Yeah, I think Arizona.
They've also been balling. I believe they're the number one defense right now, right?
But it's just like, but all of them are good choices. So it's just like, if you gotta drop one, the Patriots.
I'm probably dropping Philly here.
But Philly has Washington twice, and it's like
the Pats are number one overall defense.
Yeah, Pats, yeah. So you're definitely not dropping the Pats.
So here's the thing: when it comes to division games, normally they're also lower scoring. So division games are normally lower scoring, and the Philly defense has been really good. So I don't want to drop Arizona, but it's just based off matchups at this point, right? For the playoffs, like not just they're all good defenses. So who has the better matchups? Pat and Philly has the better one. So by process of elimination, Arizona.
Yeah, Philly gets the Jets this week. You can play Philly and then ride the Pats the rest of the way if you're concerned.
Yeah, I like that. We got a question from Mike Ortiz here saying, "What's up, peeps? I have a problem at tight end. I need to choose between Dallas Goedert, Dalton Schultz, Foster Moreau." I'm going I'm going Dalton Schultz here.
I think so
he's pretty consistent. Yeah. Not a bad problem to have. I mean, when you say you have a problem at tight end, it's usually like, am I starting James O'Shaughnessy or Jimmy Graham? I mean, this is a good problem to have, Mike.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz.
And then he says, would you drop any of those guys for Logan Thomas, assuming Waller is out? I'd drop Foster Moreau for Logan Thomas, ROS, but I also I'm assuming this is like a 2 tight end league because typically I'm not rostering any more than 1 tight end.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Logan Thomas is out there, I'd drop Foster Moreau for Logan Thomas for sure.
I'd rather have Logan Thomas.
Agreed.
All right, let's do this last question here. Is Tim Patrick ever going to happen? I mean, he did last year when Cortland Sutton was out with an ACL injury. But unfortunately, I mean, he's 4th man on the pecking order.
And he just got that contract extension too. But it's just like, I don't like the term too many mouths to feed, but
that's
again,
exactly what
they got too many mouths to feed.
Yeah, and Teddy ain't cooking.
Yeah, the problem, he can't. He's not good enough to sustain 4 receiving options and Fant, Judy, Sutton, and Patrick consistently.
Let's not forget about Javonte Williams getting his out of the backfield too. I mean, it's tough.
If Deshaun Watson gets over there, though, we don't know. Or Aaron Rodgers.
That would change everything.
Oh my God! I saw Jeff Bell drop his name again on this show. He had a tweet a couple days ago. He goes, "Be prepared this offseason because everybody is going to be valuing their wide receivers like Aaron Rodgers is going to that team." And it's so true. I mean, that's where everybody's at right now. You try trading for Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, anybody, people are like, nope. Just wait. Next year, Aaron Rodgers is going to come here. You try making a trade for Chase Claypool. Nope, they're getting Aaron Rodgers next year. It doesn't matter. Everybody thinks that their team is getting Aaron Rodgers. But
missed. There's one more comment. Buffalo Bills gonna light up the Pats. That is right, sir. I just want to end the show on a good note.
It'll be a good game for sure.
I'm excited to watch this game. Yeah,
it's gonna be a real good one. I mean,
game of the week.
Can they both lose?
A tie would be nice. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
Well, thank you for everyone to tune in to tonight's episode of the Footballguys Mailbag Show. Just a few weeks left in the regular season. We got week 13 coming up, then week 14, 15, 16, 17. We play fantasy into week 17 this year, so remember that. But just a couple weeks out from playoffs. Want to remind everyone to submit your questions into mailbag@footballguys.com. Subscribe to the YouTube page at youtube.com/footballguys. I'm Dave Kluge. I am here with Victoria Geary and Troy King, and we will catch you next week.